But MITRE is a non-profit and its broad mission is to solve problems for a safer world. Tactics, techniques which can track software vulnerabilities, the role of the threat-informed defense, and how it's evolving into the cybersecurity world.
Built this organization because we saw an opportunity to bring sophisticated security teams together to unite them on a common mission to advance cyber defense for the entire community.
So as you are, tackling cyber threats and, coming up with some innovative solutions, I wonder how do you collaborate with private and public sectors?
Build this organization so that we could, in a scalable, sustainable model, work together with industry.
Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing great. Welcome to another episode of Security Pulse. Here we empower professionals, provide educational content, as well as different innovative solutions to protect you all against cyber threats and discuss emerging technologies on how they are evolving and what it means for the cybersecurity world. Today at my show, I'm honored to have John Baker with me. John drives the strategy and outcome of MITRE Center for Threat-Informed Defense, utilizing the global cybersecurity community to elevate defenses against adversaries. As a co-founder, he collaborates with top-tier security teams to deepen the understanding of a hacker tactic and transform that knowledge into an actionable solution. John has been at the forefront of advancing cybersecurity innovation with a track record of pioneering efforts like Oasis Sticks, taxi standards, and co-creating OVAL. And the matter of fact is, he's also full-on soccer sports dad, chasing his 4 daughters all over the place for their games and tournaments. Welcome, John.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
So the topic what we are discussing today, guys, is how we can empower cyber defense and the role and impact of MITRE Center for Threat-Informed Defense. To give an introduction about MITRE, I'm sure you all are familiar with the amazing things what MITRE does, but MITRE is a non-profit and its broad mission is to solve problems for a safer world. They are well known for creating and operating CVEs for over 25 years. And CVE is the way world talks about tactics, techniques, which can track software vulnerabilities. MITRE ATT&CK, which is the well-known adversaries behavior framework, is been now for years now. And MITRE have launched recently Center for Threat-Informed Defense to drive advancements in cyber defense globally through industry-led innovations and collaborative R&D. So to talk about more about MITRE strategy and their role for threat-informed defense, I'll just want to start with John about asking that what he does in MITRE and to tell more about the role of the threat-informed defense and how it's evolving into the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, thanks, Taha. Appreciate the introduction. The Center for Threat-Informed Defense, we fundamentally built this organization because we saw an opportunity to bring sophisticated security teams together to unite them on a common mission to advance cyber defense for the entire community. We've established and tried to embrace this concept of threat-informed defense, where we're looking to understand what adversaries have done, use that knowledge at the level of what specific behaviors and how exactly have they achieved those behaviors, using that information to then guide how we improve our defenses. We can become, as an entire community, far more efficient and effective if we work together to solve problems once in a way that can scale to benefit the whole community. And so when we created the Center for Threat-Informed Defense, we had that idea and we wanted to create a venue to systematize that so that every day we could be talking about problems, developing solutions, and making them available for the whole world. And so that's what we do day in and day out at the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. As you said, 5 years in, we've now grown to about 40 members. We've published 41 different projects. All of our work is open, freely available. Our work is used by organizations around the world in their security programs to improve their security outcomes. For me, it's incredibly rewarding. I get to be entirely mission focused. When we wake up in the morning, we're trying to figure out how do we improve cyber defense for the whole community. It's become a learning environment where I continually learn with our members learn together, and create outcomes for the whole community.
Nice, interesting, wonderful. So as you are, tackling cyber threats and coming up with some innovative solutions, I wonder how do you collaborate with private and public sectors? Is there a channel or a forum where you invite people to come in, or do some announcements with a different group come in and you have joint sessions? Like, tell me more about it.
Yeah, as I said, we tried to build this organization so that we could, in a scalable, sustainable model, work together with industry. And so we publish our resources and make them open and freely available. With that basic understanding, we've created essentially, two core paths to working with industry to advance threat-informed defense. When we publish our work, we always want people to use it. We want to hear from people. We want to know how it's being used, how it's being applied, where it's not working. That feedback from the user community is critical to helping us advance and really try to drive the impact of the research that we do. We learn tremendously when people share with us how they use our work. So that's one. And then secondly, we are very open and interested in ideas. Problems are wonderful. We're a research organization, so we like problems. Ideas are great, but problems help guide what we do next. We are always evaluating problems and ideas for consideration for our next research project. And so anybody can contribute or ask a question, can contribute a problem or a solution or an idea that they have. And that could become part of our next research initiative, right? So we want community input on usage, on ideas and problems. And then third, our member organizations really work together with us hand in hand, learning, actually developing the research products that we publish. So that third opportunity is to join us. We're a membership-based program where members pay membership dues, they fund the research, they actively engage and learn with us through the research program. So there's kind of three primary ways. Ultimately, though, always trying to focus on how do we create practical resources that cyber defenders can use to improve outcomes today.
Super interesting, John. Super interesting. And as you were saying, I was thinking about the work what we do as well at Xecurity. So we have a lab where we do research and we try to see how the attackers are exploiting like the telecom systems. So I'm wondering, this is something which we can collaborate on. I would love to be have more insights on the membership program. So normally, like in the telecom world, when we do a research, and if we found out a vulnerability, we shared this with the industry standards organization like GSMA and 3GPP standards group, so they can evaluate the solution. So this is something which we can definitely target. So coming moving on into knowing more about the threat informed defense. So we know about like MITRE ATT&CK and how it gives the overall framework and the encyclopedia on the attack tactics and techniques. So how does the center leverage the framework MITRE ATT&CK to inform different strategies or to evolve on it? Is there any like add-on that you guys do on top of MITRE ATT&CK?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I gave a really short explanation of what threat-informed defense is as we got started. A fuller explanation would say that really MITRE ATT&CK is at the core of threat-informed defense. When we define threat-informed defense, we say that it is that practice of understanding adversary behaviors at a deep technical level and using that knowledge to improve defense. Well, when we're working to understand adversary behaviors, what we're really doing is studying, contributing to, and advancing the attack corpus. MITRE ATT&CK is a knowledge base of known adversary behaviors. And so it provides that foundation. It's the noun, if you will, that we're all focused on, that we're trying to figure out How are adversaries applying that or might apply that against our organization? How do we test our defenses based on that behavior? How do we improve our defenses against that behavior? And what it does is it creates this sort of feedback loop. And so I tend to think of threat-informed defense as this continuous cycle. We're always learning about our adversaries. We're applying that knowledge, the specific tactics, techniques that they use to test our defenses. We learn through testing, we improve our defenses, and the cycle continues, right? So as I said, attack really is at the foundation. I'm also quite proud that through the Center's research program, we've done a lot of work that has expanded MITRE ATT&CK. So if you look at MITRE ATT&CK today, it has a container matrix. Obviously, it has a cloud matrix. Those are all things that the Center, with our partners, member organizations, has developed and contributed significantly to over time. So we advance it, MITRE ATT&CK. We are based upon it, and we innovate with it all the time. In a few minutes, I'll show some project examples that are, it'll become pretty clear how we innovate on top of MITRE ATT&CK as well.
Got it. Great. And before you actually do this, John, I would like to also bring in the FIGHT framework as well, because in the 5G world, MITRE has also come up with their FIGHT framework as well. So is that something which you also feeds into your program, or planning to do it at a later stage, maybe?
Yeah, today we really haven't focused our research program around FIGHT, and I think it's worth taking a moment to understand why that is. We're a membership-based organization. Our members really drive what we focus on in the research program. We've talked with our members about FIGHT. We've talked with our members about several other things that we think are important. But ultimately, for us to engage in that area or that topic in the research program, we need buy-in from our members. Our members have been very focused on AI, on traditional enterprise challenges, on how do we improve our ability to understand adversaries and defend against those threats in the enterprise environment. We've done work in the OT and kind of ICS environments as well. Again, working with our members, driven by their priorities. FIGHT to date hasn't been a priority among our members, but that's also probably in part due to, if you look at our memberships, we don't have strong representation from the telecommunications industry among our members, and we should change that, right?
Yes, of course. This is what I was coming down to, that hey, we should do something about it. So to make this more like fun, and to more make this more practical, could you walk us through a recent project or initiative where the center had a significant impact, maybe, where you can show us that how you're creating like value?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna share a browser here, so give me a second to do that. Share should be coming through now. So fix my windows there. Perfect. Yeah, I thought I would pick on summiting the pyramid as an example of something that we've done. We talked a minute ago about how we use attack and we innovate and we build upon attack. Well, summiting the pyramid is a great example. The pyramid here is a reference to David Bianco's Pyramid of Pain. And what we've tried to do is leverage that concept to help all defenders evaluate detections for adversary behavior and make them more robust to changes in adversary behavior. So with David Bianco's Pyramid of Pain, the whole idea is that at the bottom of the pyramid are things like indicators of compromise. And if you work your way up towards the top of the pyramid, what you'll see is, and I can, kind of zoom in here to make this a little bigger just for the image. What you'll start to see is a set of artifacts that are much harder for adversaries to change. And so what this is fundamentally about is imposing cost on the adversary. It's really easy for an adversary to change a file hash or an IP address. It becomes much harder if an adversary has to find a whole new way of establishing persistence or a whole new way of moving laterally within an organization. That means they have to go develop new software, new tools, new approaches to achieve their goals. So I thought I would highlight this one because it is fundamentally all about leveraging that knowledge of adversary behaviors but we've created a model and a framework to guide all detection engineers in improving their detections. And I think this is a great impact story too, because we worked with about 8 of our member organizations. We learned with them. And what we've seen now is our members, like for example, Microsoft used the work to evolve how they do event reporting in their operating system and how they do detections in their Defender solution. We see CrowdStrike uses it to evaluate their detections. We see Fortinet uses it to evaluate their detections. But moving beyond our members, we see organizations around the world use it within their enterprises to create more robust defenses. And we can have that kind of scale and our impact far bigger than any single organization because of the technical credibility and experience that we have among our MITRE research team and the members that work with us on these projects. We get to work with some of the smartest people that are heavily invested in improving detection engineer, learn together and create resources that benefit the whole community. So Summiting is out there, it's available, anybody can pick it up and use it today.
Nice, nice. Super interesting, John. And just as a follow-up, so somebody like, for example, a Comcast or a Verizon or any enterprise who wants to operationalize their threat centers with this framework. So any tips or any like go-to next steps which you would like to add on here?
Yeah, I thought I would. You can see I have a few tabs open here. I thought I would share a couple different projects. Among our members, we're very fortunate. We have some very sophisticated organizations that are committed to advancing threat-informed defense, not just within their organizations, but helping the world too. We really want to not just serve our members, but find a way to serve our members. And as I said earlier, create practical resources that help all organizations. So your question is one of the most common ones we get is, how do I get started? How do I know what's good enough? How do I get better at threat-informed defense? So we created this project called M3TID. Some call it MITID. It's about measuring and maturing your threat-informed defense. I thought I would jump to an example here. So if you go through this project, you'll see a bunch of documentation. Eventually, there's a tool that you can use to sit down within your security program and look at your program across those 3 core components of threat-informed defense: threat intelligence, test and evaluation, and defensive measures. And the thing I thought I would show you is within the tool, we've allowed you to kind of track your progress and change over time. And so these are some images that kind of show what's happening within this tool. So let's look at the threat intelligence area. We've broken that down into 5 key factors. So when you think of a threat intelligence program and how you're tracking threat intelligence, one component might be the depth of threat data. Are you looking at IOCs, or are you going all the way to understand the specific procedures, the specific TTPs that are being used, and are you tracking at that level? Obviously, you can start to think about the breadth. Are you focused, narrowly on one particular adversary, one particular type of threat? Or are you starting to go broader? And so, you can look across these components and evaluate your organization across these components. There's a detailed workbook that kind of gives context and definition to all these terms. But what that then allows you to do is start to create visualizations so you can see, well, how am I doing across those 3 core components of threat-informed defense relative to each other? So, this might tell us that in our test and evaluation area, we're scoring very high, much higher than we're doing in our defensive measures and intel. So maybe we need to look at our intel program and look for opportunities to advance there before we put more resources into test and evaluation. So you can start to see changes over time. You can see where within a particular component your strengths are or your weaknesses. So maybe you're not doing a lot of test planning and you're not testing very frequently, but you've done a good job of ensuring that your tests are relevant to the threat data you have, is what this example would be showing. So M3TID is intended to be a resource that any organization can use, regardless of their sort of their scale and their size or their maturity. We've seen organizations as large as global companies with tens of thousands of employees that distribute around the world, to smaller to medium-sized businesses using it to start to think about their defenses, where they invest their time and resources to improve threat-informed defense. One of the things that I love is, with our research program, we try to create practical resources, but we also give you all of the ingredients so you can take it and innovate with it. The team at PwC Japan saw what we published with M3 TID here, and they used it to do a countrywide survey to understand the maturity or the state of threat-informed defense in Japan. They've published a couple rounds of research showing how threat-informed defense has been adopted, where there are challenges as a country. I think that's awesome. We're going to be working to try to get a global view of the state of threat-informed defense and use that to drive where we focus our resources next in our research program. So can drive our research program, can drive your security program.
Nice, nice. And John, a couple of things I would like to add on here is, so when we talk about security and threat informed defense, generally in any enterprise, there is a element of cost that comes into it. That, hey, how much should I spend on my defense strategies? How big are our team I need to have? So with this kind of approach, you can save lots of cost. In terms of resources, in terms of you can prioritize the security controls and the techniques that you really wants to have looking at this metrics, right? So this is something which will add value. And secondly, a lot of companies are now going towards a zero trust security model, where they are just narrowing down onto what policy they need to make, how to, which policy security control they need to include. So with this data, that also can be optimized. So I would say, I would definitely, encourage uh, like people looking at it, to go through and test all this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really nice about M3 TID is with about 90 minutes of time, if you work in sort of a cyber defense role or within your security team in a company, you could just on your own go to the website, download. There's an Excel workbook that'll guide you through the process. Read the document, download it, and just do kind of like a notional assessment of your organization. And I think just with that initial investment, you'll start to see, what, actually, if we sat down and did this seriously as a team, it would help guide us. We're trying to find ways to make cyber defense more efficient and effective for everyone.
Got it. Cool. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some emerging trends and some of the future challenges. So when we talk about emerging technologies like AI, quantum, 5G, advanced topics, how is the threat landscape evolving? If you look at the work that you guys are doing at MITRE, and how is the center preparing to address those challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, one of the things that's great about this line of work that we're in is that there's never a dull moment. It's always changing, right? The IT environment is always changing, where we have new resources, new capabilities that we can use, and adversaries are always innovating. And so, good job, security, I guess. But it's also a great place to learn and have that continual learning and the continual impact, hopefully, as well. As I said, our research program is really, we work together with our members. It's our members' priorities and interests that drive where we focus. Not surprisingly, understanding how to secure and defend the AI systems that everybody is rapidly embracing is a huge priority among our members. We have launched a whole new focus area in our research program that we've called Secure AI. I'll fix the zoom on this here. There we go. And it's telling that among our members, nearly half of our member organizations have opted into working with us on this research program. You can see organizations from global IT providers, global financial institutions, innovative startups that are focused on the AI security challenge and AI threat landscape. global companies that are developing, compute resources and processors to support AI, all working together. And what that means is we're bringing our different perspectives together to understand the threat and develop strategies to mitigate those. And so with our secure AI focus area, we are working to expand Atlas. Atlas is a knowledge base like MITRE ATT&CK that's focused on capturing and sharing for the world the specific behaviors that adversaries use to attack AI-enabled systems. So we're trying to take a threat-informed approach to securing AI-enabled systems, leveraging that knowledge of what adversaries have done, what researchers have proven out and is likely to be done by adversaries, to then develop strategies to red team or test our AI-enabled systems, and then develop strategies to mitigate those. And so that research program is up and running now. We had our first round of publication in the fall. You'll see more work from us throughout the year in 2025. I decided to pick on this one. I know you gave a couple of different, sort of a broad question about different areas, but this is the one where we've had the most immediate impact already and the most energy to continue to grow and advance research there. Research around 5G and quantum are definitely of interest among our members. At this point, it's an interest, and it hasn't turned into actionable resources just yet. But those are things that are in our R&D discussions as maybe next topics, next places for us to focus.
Nice. Talking about AI, John, there is a good resource and content that is coming up from NIST as well, with their risk management framework of AI. So where do you think that would comes in if somebody wants to, for example, adapt this this resource? So what do you recommend? Should we start from there in terms of considering where we are in terms of AI governance and then using this resource, or start from this and just see that how you can incorporate those which are coming in from NIST and other organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. They are, I think of them as really kind of complementary resources and complementary worlds almost. We're doing research at the technical level to understand what are the things adversaries are specifically doing, figure out how to test our systems based on those and mitigate those, right? And that's critically important to have that foundational knowledge. But if you're thinking about your whole organization and AI risk in your organization, you need that foundational knowledge, but it also is important to have that higher level framework to build upon there. So I see them as very complementary. They're going to be kind of tailored to slightly different audiences. I find when you talk to people about AI risk versus the people that are actively looking for ways to exploit AI-enabled systems.
Got it.
You need that foundational knowledge of what adversaries are doing, what's possible, to inform those risk decisions.
Got it. Great. Now moving on onto some of the implementation aspects. So we talked about how it started. What are the different ways, some useful resources. Now if you talk about implementation, if let's say if I'm an organization, a small to medium sized one, and if I'm already using, let's say, SOC as a service solution, and if I have to adopt a threat informed defense approach, where do you see, or what do you recommend? Where do we start? If I talk about practical implementation of it, should we start on like evaluating to where we stand, or is there a go-to like next step that you would recommend?
Yeah. As I think about that, Taha, I think within our that question of where do I get started? How do I begin with threat defense? As I said, when we talked a little bit about M3 TID, that was our goal, is to provide this sort of broader framework and maturity model to think across your whole organization. We also get a much simpler question all the time, which is kind of along the lines of, MITRE ATT&CK is a very useful resource, but it's overwhelming. How do I know where to get started? And I think that's that's something that I'm actually really proud that we developed a tool to help that, or help answer that through our research program. We created a project called the Top Attack Techniques Calculator. And just to kind of share some insight into how things evolve through our research program, we actually started out and we were going to create a top attack technique list. And we were kind of going down this path. What should the list be driven by? How do we decide what's on the list? We were going to create a methodology and publish the list so that people could understand why techniques were on that list. And one of our members pointed out that, that's really nice, but what people really need is the ability to create their own list. And that led to this idea, like, wait a second, we'll publish a list, but let's also create a calculator. So we now have the Top Attack Technique Calculator that will let you, as an organization, build your own top attack technique list. And so the short answer to where do I get started is open up the Top Attack Technique Calculator and build your organization's top technique list and start there. So I'm just going to assume all the defaults here for the moment and generate the list. And if I do that, you'll see the top technique listed is impair defenses. So then my next suggestion is, all right, go learn about that technique and essentially pull the thread on that technique within your organization. For that particular technique, what are the sub-techniques? What's my visibility of those sub-techniques within my organization? What's my ability to mitigate those particular techniques and sub-techniques within my organization? The Top Attack Technique Calculator is customizable. So once I have decided that, I've kind of walked through all of impair defenses, I can take it off my list and move on to the next technique. And it'll keep kind of regenerating for you your technique list. We wanted to create a list that was driven by frequency. So how often is it used in the wild? We wanted to understand how techniques relate to each other. So we created this concept called choke points. And we wanted to, I'm trying to find the diagram here. I'm not going to find it right at the second, but we wanted to understand that, some techniques essentially are gateways to other techniques or choke points. Like you have to have succeeded at this behavior to be able to do these others. Well, those should be higher prioritized, right? And then third, we wanted to ensure that a list was actionable. So if there's a technique, but practically speaking, there's really not much you can do about it as a defender, it's going to be lower in the list, even if it's widely used. We want to give you a list that you can do something about that's based on prevalence of those techniques and that concept of a co-occurrence there, choke points. And so now with top attack techniques, any organization can identify the techniques that are important to them. And then we created another resource that we call the Mappings Explorer. We've done a lot of work in our research program to relate security capabilities to the techniques that they can defend against. So Mappings Explorer allows me to kind of browse, explore the whole set of security capabilities mapped to techniques. So I can now go, I'm going to randomly pick off of the enterprise matrix a particular, I'm going to pick valid accounts. So this is the valid accounts technique and gives you information so you can read about it. You can go learn about it more on the attack website. But it then lists all of the different security capabilities that might protect or mitigate that particular technique. And so now you as a security engineer or a cyber defense cyber defender can use this resource to understand, okay, I'm worried about this T1078 valid accounts. What do I have in my security stack that can help me? And we've now mapped across the NIST 853 controls. We've looked at the security capabilities in Azure, in AWS, and GCP, and M365. So there's a pretty rich corpus of controls up there that you can use. So if you kind of put these together, which technique is most important to me? kind of pull the thread, as I said, and then you can jump into Mappings Explorer and look at, for that particular technique, what's available to me to defend against that technique. Right? So trying to make it easy for any organization to pick this up and use it.
I think this is super helpful, John. And even with this, I reckon like even a smaller company who doesn't have a budget, to hire like 20 people, maybe, and there's like in their defense team can leverage this. So it's very practical for the smaller businesses as well. Uh, so just as a follow-up question. So for example, if I have a security design in place, right, and if I have to know, for example, which techniques I have to have, or in order for me to be better equipped, so can we, let's say, like upload maybe an architecture diagram or maybe an overall stack view in which we can have, for example, a list of techniques which are available for us, maybe, and this is what the threats looks like for this architecture. Is there any roadmap which you think would be is in place to have those sort of practices in place in this approach?
I love that idea. That's not something that we're currently working on or that's on the roadmap. However, if I kind of flip that around the other way, think of it from the perspective of the adversary, there is something that we have done that I think is directly relevant for you. We created a project called Attack Flow. So if attack is our knowledge base of known adversary behaviors, Attack Flow creates a data model for representing sequences of behaviors. The driver that led to creating Attack Flow, or the question was, for the latest ransomware attack that you hear about in the news, is my organization protected? Should we be panicking about this latest attack, right? And what we can do is we can build a flow that shows the specific sequences of behaviors, and you can overlay that on your organization's defenses to then understand, okay, we may not have every single one of those behaviors covered perfectly, but because we're really good at detecting, lateral movement, we're going to be able to see this happening and stop it at lateral movement, right? And so, maybe we don't have that perfect coverage and we want to work to get better coverage across that whole chain because the ransomware attack's going to evolve. But for today, we don't need to panic because we have that choke point well understood and would be able to identify and stop that attack, right? So we often end up in this place where we're taking ideas like what you asked about there, using your own a model or representation of your own enterprise architecture, and kind of flipping that around, like, okay, well, what have adversaries done? And thinking of it from that perspective, and putting together that model of, all right, well, here's how adversaries have conducted this sort of attack in the past, or this specific attack in the past. How would that stand up against your model?
Got it. Super helpful, John, and very, very insightful. I think we have covered quite a lot of information, and thank you very much, John, for your insights. So, if for closing down, I mean, if I have to summarize what we have discussed, I mean, so what I would suggest, and is to start, for example, where you are in terms of your threat defense, where you are in terms of your architecture, and then try to evaluate, what additional measures or what threats you are having in your network, and from there you can make an informed decision that, hey, what resources I need to follow. But keep an eye on the resources what John has shared, and there is a lots of resources as well available. So I think we can as we will upload this podcast show, we can highlight all the resources where you can go to, so that would be helpful for you. So before we go to the Q&A, John, is there any recent case study which you can highlight, which have benefit organizations who have used the threat informed defense approach and the resources?
Yeah, I picked on one of our most recent publications with Summoning the Pyramid 2. The very most recent project that we released is another mappings project where what we wanted to do was understand and demonstrate to the world how some of the modern hardware can support our defenses. We worked with a team from Intel, from Microsoft, from CrowdStrike, from ATT&CK to look at the relationship between the Intel vPro chip, the Microsoft operating system, Microsoft Defender, and CrowdStrike's capability to understand how those things fit together in a modern system to help us defend against adversary behaviors. The reason that this project was compelling to me is that that chip is in tens of millions of systems around the world. And if we can help defenders understand how to use them to thwart the threats that they care about, we can have a tremendous impact. And so that project really was all about kind of shining light on the capabilities that are available for defenders to use today that are maybe a little bit understated or not well understood. And so if we can try to raise more awareness of that, I think we can have a positive impact on the community. And so that one was published last week, actually. So that's our most recent publication. We have a whole bunch of work coming up that I'm super excited for. The next release is going to be a project that aligns the NIST known exploited vulnerability list, or sorry, the CISA known exploited vulnerability list, the CVEs that are in that list with the MITRE attack techniques that are related to them. And so there'll be another publication of mappings between attack and the KEV list, and we'll maintain that moving forward. So now if you are a threat intel analyst, you'll have essentially a bridge connecting you and allowing you to collaborate more effectively with your vulnerability management team as they work to prioritize. You can now start to prioritize how you do vulnerability management based on the impact for the adversary if they exploit that vulnerability. If you exploit this particular vulnerability, you're then going to be able to implement these attack techniques or these behaviors, right? So you can kind of look at it from the perspective of the adversary to drive how you prioritize, among other things in vulnerability management. We think it's a factor to drive prioritization. It's not the only one.
Nice, brilliant. And so I know you discussed about the conference which is happening in Singapore, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is there any recent events for 2020 for this year where we can see all this live and for our audience as well, like in the North America region, like who can reach out to you? Any conferences coming up which you are on this year?
It's early in the year, so some of the event calendar isn't fully defined just yet. But if you go to our website, ctid.mitre.org, you'll see the set of events that are currently planned. The big ones, we're pretty focused right now, pretty engaged on developing the Asia Pacific Attack Community Workshop, March 6th and 7th in Singapore. Actually just had a kickoff call this morning for planning for the EU Attack Community Workshop, which will be in Brussels, May 14, 15. I think the save the date's been announced, but registration will open in a couple weeks here. We're doing training before each of those events. At Singapore, we're going to do a training on M3TID. We're going to help people understand and apply M3TID for their organizations. Our goal is to allow you that, if you attend that training, to be able to go back to work, back to the office, and use M3TID within your organization. In Europe, at the EU Attack, we're going to do a training on attack flow. I mentioned attack flow a little bit ago. We're doing a bunch of work on attack flow right now. And so there'll be a release. Following that release, we'll have a whole new round of training. I know you asked about North America. I think we're going to do training at the RHISAC conference coming up, where you have training at the annual FIRST Summit. We got accepted there. Still waiting to hear if our training proposal, we have a threat modeling with attack proposal into RSA that we're waiting to hear back on. Fingers crossed, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah, that's kind of the first half of the year. A lot of training in different events where we'll be doing talks and that sort of thing. we love to hear from people. So always, if you see us or our team members at events talking, doing training, please reach out, say hello.
Yeah. Great, great. Thank you, John, for sharing all this information. I think let's open the stage for the Q&A. Guys, thank you for watching the show. If you have any questions, please leave it on the chat, and we'll be happy to take it. Uh, John, there is also an like a Black Hat conference which is coming up. I think there is also like a good opportunity for the training as well over
Yeah, I'll
there.
put a plug in for an organization that we've worked with a bunch for the last several years at DEF CON. So following Black Hat, we've helped the Adversary Village. We've done some hands-on training in the Adversary Village, or done talks and that kind of thing. Still pretty early on. We're probably going to do some similar work together with the Adversary Village team there. Still thinking about what we'll be doing at Black Hat. Black Hat's a little bit different sort of event than DEF CON. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've been also working with Black Hat to do something for the telecom anniversary thing. So I think we can definitely collaborate on that as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be great.
I have one question, John, coming in. Talking about threat informed defense approach, how do you think it complements SOC as a service model, where there is team being team operating remotely. Let's say we have a company in the US and they have a SOC as a service team which is sitting in outside the US, right? And they have to adopt a threat informed defense approach with their offshore team. So how do you think that would play in?
No, that's a great question. It's definitely not one that I've thought much about. So kind of off the cuff, I'll say, I think that like the fundamental concept of threat informed defense is unchanged in that sort of scenario. And obviously that's a pretty common scenario. What we see among our members and other organizations across the community is a shift in how they start to organize their security programs. I've seen some organizations starting to hire people with a title of Director of Threat Informed Defense, or have a Threat Informed Defense organization within their security program. And often that organization ends up with like the offensive security kind of red team function with the intel function and the SOC function all together under that one role in that one organization. So if you're seeing organizations shifting towards that, I would imagine that a SOC as a service to make that function well, you'd really want to kind of set it up with easy access and collaboration with those other kind of core functions. I think that like one of the key things about threat informed defense is the communication across those functions, where you're continually focused on that adversary behavior to drive how you operate within the functions.
Got it. No, well said. There is one more question which I would like to take in. It's super interesting. So, if somebody wants to land a job in the threat informed defense area, what are the top, I would say, like 3 skills you would say that he has to have it in terms of experience and certifications, any because you have been there for long and enough in tech, the lecture and all of this. So what do you recommend on this?
There's not like a set bulleted list of this and this, right? I think that's actually one of the things that's great about cybersecurity is there's plenty of room for a lot of different skills, a lot of different people with different experiences to work together. If you're thinking about a career and want to get started, I suggest you start by first learning MITRE ATT&CK and getting to a place where you feel comfortable with what is MITRE ATT&CK and how is it used. On the MITRE website for attack.mitre.org, you'll see links to training videos. There's a training that's called Attack Fundamentals. There's one called Attack for SOC Assessments. And then there's one for attack for threat intelligence. I forget the exact course titles, but they're all up there. They're free. I would suggest starting with those, probably fundamentals, threat intelligence, and then assessments. And that's going to give you like that basic foundation. And then, unfortunately, the rest of my answer is going to be kind of a cop out. Are
Yeah.
you more curious to focus on, like the purple team or the sort of the red team adversary emulation kind of work? Are you more likely to kind of want to gravitate towards Intel? So you got a kind of guide there, but start with that fundamental knowledge of attack, and just know cybersecurity is something that needs lots of different skill sets and
Yeah.
perspectives.
True, true. I definitely, agree on this, and you'll see a lot of resumes coming in your inbox after this after this podcast. So that's you need to like watch out. There is this one question from Hamna Tahir. How does MITRE prioritize advanced persistent threats as compared to other cybersecurity risk?
Um, so the reality is we don't give you that prioritization. What we've done is tried to position ourselves as a resource to understand what adversaries do, how they achieve, what their goals are and how they achieve their goals. And to prioritize threats, you really need knowledge of your organization, the sector you're in, the kind of business you're in, the resources that you have, to understand, if I'm in the healthcare sector versus the finance sector, you probably have very different threats you're thinking about that would drive your prioritization.
True, true. Just to add on this, Hamna, I think it all depends on your like the kind of data that you are
Yep.
like processing, as John mentioned, and the kind of resources you have. So it's a mixture of a lot of other things as well. I think we are good, John. I really want to thank you again for coming to the show. Your insights has been very helpful. The resources that like you have shared is very informative and really helpful for our audience to understand what this is all about. Uh, any closing thoughts, John? Where people can reach out to you, where they can meet you like next time.
Yeah. I just threw, for those of you that are on the chat, I just threw a link to our Get Involved page in the chat. If you look at our website and you're curious, you want to learn more, you want to kind of know what we're up to in the research program, I'd say, sign up for our mailing list. There's a contact form there. Definitely always looking for, ideas, perspectives, feedback, that kind of thing. Looking for new member organizations, of course, to help drive the research program. So there's that. Other easy way is follow us on LinkedIn. We try to post all of our releases. We try to post technical kind of thought leadership content there as well. But yeah, you can always reach out to me too. I'm up on LinkedIn. Love to connect with people.
Thank you, John. Just a closing thought from my side. Please keep following us, and remember always that cybersecurity is not something which is just being smart. It's essential these days, and and threat informed defense approach is something which you need to check out, and just be whatever you do, try to evaluate all the risk, try to check resources, and keep yourself up to date with the knowledge that whatever you can get. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day, and keep following us. We'll be back with a new guest, and thank you, John, again, and the whole MITRE team for your participation.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great fun.
Thank you.